All right, we're at the top of the story arc right now in conflict. So Robert Olin Butler captures the essence of the story in his famous quote, "Conflict is where yearning meets an obstacle." Honestly, conflict is the story. The goal in workers' compensation is to help injured workers overcome their adversity, overcome their impediments to wellness. Every claim file in our system reflects our collective yearning to overcome an obstacle. Our next speaker, Dr. Brittany Busse, heads right for conflict with her presentation called Creating a Culture of Compassion. Dr. Busse is the lead telemedicine physician at Cura MD. She specializes in implementing processes and training practitioners in unique compassionate care and outcomes-based initiatives. She graduated from the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine and Public Health in 2009, where she was active in various research, community outreach, and quality improvement programs. She has spent the last 3 years working in community medicine and occupational health with a focus on empathic communication and whole person care. She has a passion for evidence-based medicine and outcome-driven care, while emphasizing compassion for patients and return to functionality as a primary goal. Paging Dr. Busse to the stage.
Okay, so rather than tell you my personal story, I would like to start by engaging each of you to re-experience a personal story that you are carrying with yourself. So I'd like to ask everyone, please close your eyes, looking around, and take a big, deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Now, with all of your eyes closed, I want you to bring to mind an experience where you were in conflict with another person. How does that experience feel in your body when you're recalling the details of that conflict, of the person, of the setting, of the content? If your body could reenact those feelings right now, how would it look? What would you feel? Now, go ahead and open your eyes and bring yourselves back here to the room, and I'm sure you're all very safe, and you can relax your jaw and your neck and your shoulders. But hopefully each of you had an experience in your body that felt physically potentially painful. And there's a reason why we say that conflict creates tension between people. We feel that tension. We feel it in our bodies, in our muscles, and the gripping sensations that hold us. In addition, MRI research has shown us that these memories of conflict, of anxiety, of isolation, of pain are all stored in the same regions of our brain. So when you experience conflict, in addition to physical pain, you will actually create memory loops that trigger the pain along with the conflict. So every day, we know that workers may become injured. Because of these injuries, they are inducted into a system where conflict is inevitable. They are experiencing conflicts, perhaps new conflicts, with their employers, who view them as potentially not taking them seriously, not recognizing that this is a real injury, that it's causing them pain. They may fight against them filing a claim in the first place. They may not accommodate their work restrictions. So those new conflicts can get heaped on potential existing conflicts that the person already feels between their employer. In addition to that, they start to meet a whole bunch of new people that they could come in conflict with. They're claims administrators, they're nurse case managers. And the conflicts that they start to experience are not only the interpersonal conflicts that they may be experiencing when the claims administrator comes in with a pre-existing thought that these workers are exaggerating their injuries, that they're trying to get some kind of secondary gain out of the system, whether that be time off of work or opioid medications. And we all come in with that pre-existing thought about injured workers because, hey, we've seen it all. I've seen all these injured workers and, they're all in it for themselves. But in the end, it's about ourselves and our pre-existing thoughts, fears, and notions about our own shame and vulnerability. So I would encourage each of you to start thinking about, what do you bring with you when you come to work? Are you feeling overworked, overstressed? Are you on the verge of a burnout? Are you feeling conflict and frustration in your workplace? And are you bringing that to the injured worker? We know that these perceived and real conflicts will add stress and ultimately lead to an increased experience of pain and suffering. So if you wonder why in injured workers, injured knee takes on average 3 times longer to get better in the workers' comp system versus in the general health system, think about the numbers of real and perceived barriers that person has to overcome. And every time they bump up against a barrier, their suffering increases. So there is no difference between physical and mental suffering. Pain is pain. So now that we know that the cycle exists, what is the solution? How can we break the cycle? So in 6 minutes, I hope to give you something that can change your life and the lives of those around you. And that is to start with yourself and start to create an awareness of your own mental state. You see, each of us has the ability to reduce our own intrapersonal and interpersonal conflicts by improving our awareness and compassion for ourselves and for others. And these are a few basic steps that you can take right now. First, I want you to fully ingest the world's oldest piece of wisdom, and it's inscribed at the Oracle of Delphi, and it says, "Know thyself." You see, there is no difference between the energy of awareness of yourself and your fears and your reactions and extending that energy into compassion. When you take the time to know yourself without judgment, you'll understand that each person you encounter is just like you. From here, you can start to become more present, and that transitions to listening with empathy. You begin to quiet the inner and outer conflicts of your mind and your preconceptions prior to each interaction that you have, and that allows you to be more present and to listen and validate the fears of others. But if you don't know what your own fears are, and you don't know what your own armor is, and you don't prepare yourself by taking it off, then you're going to lose that opportunity to connect with them as a person. So you need to show up and release your fears and open yourself up and show up willing to potentially be wounded. To say, I'm sorry you're suffering. That doesn't mean that you're accepting responsibility for the suffering. It doesn't mean you're putting blame on somebody else. Just the acknowledgement of the suffering is enough. For most people, just the willingness to be seen and the validation of their personal experience is enough to mitigate much of their personal suffering. So in our first few steps, we've started to cultivate awareness and empathy. And compassion is actually empathy in action. So we know if we've empathized too much, you might start to suffer yourself. If you see someone trip and sprain their ankle and you think, oh my gosh, that hurts, you're going to start to feel that in your own body. But when we move that awareness into helping, That becomes compassion. And compassion, unlike suffering, lights up the reward center in your brain. So the more you do it, the better you're going to feel, and you're actually going to transfer that sensation onto the injured worker. So rather than bringing conflict to the experience, when you bring compassion, you actually extend healing to that person. So when you take an action to add suffering, like I said, as simple as validating the experience of another person, you help to alleviate their suffering. Another way that you can offer to help the injured worker is by offering education and advocacy. So to be really passionate about what we do, we can educate ourselves about recovery from illness and injury. What are the options? What helps? What doesn't help? Rather than just saying, I'm sorry, I can't do that. What can you do? What are some simple things that you can bring to the worker to help them find their own path towards healing? So when we start to honor the sameness as well as the uniqueness of our experience, that allows us to treat others with dignity and compassion. Ultimately, this has a positive impact on you as well as those around you. By having compassion, we'll decrease conflict, decrease stress, and reduce pain and suffering. And this will, in the end, bring about needed change in our industry. You see, as long as we see ourselves as technicians with the job of moving the injured body part to the outcome of maximum medical improvement, injured workers will continue to appear to us as problems to solve or to avoid. I believe that just a little bit more compassion for ourselves and for each other as individual people, we can improve the outcomes for injured workers and bring about more meaningful change. Thank you.